to go to the Daf. I don't want you to miss.
No, they didn't install it yet. So
Good morning, everybody.
Ernie, Mazel Tov, how are you?
Thank you, Walter.
How was the bat mitzvah?
Beautiful. There's a beautiful venue in Ranana called Bandolino.
Yeah,
And you know that place.
I think I know. Where is it? It's on the. I don't know.
It's near Weitzman. It's right near the hotel, right near the Prima Hotel.
Near the Prima Hotel, yeah. And beautiful.
And it's beautiful. It's outdoors, green, and then indoor. It's just beautiful. And the catering great. And party was great. It was just fantastic.
Okay. Where we holding on? Pay.
Sadik Hey Omer.
Tzadik pay. Okay. Okay.
No, it's Tzadik Vav. Tzadik Vav, 96.
Correct.
96. Rava Savar Rab Yonason. Umetaretz Lekroy Rab Yonason. There was a machlokas Abai and Rava, how to understand the psukim, the Tanya. In Balavi Molo Yishalem. We're dealing with the sugya that if you hire the owner of the cow or any object that you either borrow as a shomer or rent, and the owner was present, when you rented it versus when the animal died or broke its leg, there's a tour, there's an exemption from payment, right? In Balavimo lo yishalem. Now, mashmod is b'tarvayu, from that pasuk, that he has to be there both at the time that you rented him, and also that he has that if he didn't have to be present at both, as long as he was present at one of them, either at the time of borrowing or at the time that the animal died. But then there's another pasuk, the sort of the negative, uksiv balav einimo shalem yishalem. There's a pasuk that says beferush, if the owner is not there, you have to pay. Now, why did the Torah need to say that? You know the opposite from the first pasuk of Balavi Malo Yishalem. Then so that's already mashma the less b'tarvayu. That's mashma that if he's not at either of the two, but umashmanami which is exactly the opposite of what we just deduced. Where if he's at one of the events, he would be chayav to pay. So there's a stira. So what does the second pasuk come to tell me? The trigger, the most important is if the owner was hired at the same time that you borrowed the item. If that's the case, then the owner doesn't have to be there when the animal broke down. If he was present when the animal broke down, it's not enough. He has to be he has to be present at the time of the borrow in order for there's a patur. Gemara asks, I could just learn the opposite. That if he was present at the time of the breakage, he's potter, and not at the time of the sheila. Why do you Why do you say that the ikr is for him to be there at the time of the borrowing? The Gemara says that's a logical thing, mistavra. That she'ela adifa, for the bailim to be hired at the time of the borrowing, that's stronger. At that time, the borrower transfers the item into his rishus. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? I could show you a logic pumfakir. It's the opposite. Adarabba. Shura umesa adifa. Sheken chayiv ba'oinsen. Because a shoel is chayiv always ba'oinsen. Who cares whether the bailim are there? No. Because ilo she'ela, if it wasn't for the fact that he actually was a borrower, shvur umesa mayav, who cares that the animal didn't die in his rishus? However, the other hand, the ilav shvur umesa, if it wasn't for the fact that he died, she'ela mayavid, then what the she'ela didn't have any meaning either. Filachi she'ela adifa, sheken chayiv b'mezon haseh. You already start with a certain responsibility at the time of the she'ela. You have to start feeding the animal. So it makes more sense for the owner to be there at the time of the borrowing. Rav Ashi says you can actually learn it from the language of the pasuk. Omer krod, v'chi yishal ish me'im re'ehu. If a person borrows from a friend, so implying the lo re'ehu imo, that if the friend is not with him, shalom yishalem. Ha re'ehu imo, if the friend is with him, potter. New limud. So ihachi. So that what was the point in the Torah saying ba'alavim ein imo ve'im ba'alavimo lamali? If it's all learned from re'ehu. So ilav hanech. If I didn't have those other two psukim, Havamina would have thought, listen, it's normal for a person to say, you're borrowing it from somebody, you got to borrow it from another person. So now, having the two others, we come to the maskana, like we said yesterday, that the key is for the bailim to be present when he hired. If that's the case, then everything follows, and Shavura Umesa, he has a patur. If he was not there at the time of She'ela, and it was Shvur Mesa, he would be high. Okay. Now, the Gemara now is going to go through a lot of hypotheticals regarding the inyan of Balavimo. Boira Bacham. Shalom River. Normally, a person borrows an animal because he needs to use it to work in the field or to schlep. Let's say the intent of the person who's borrowing the animal, he wants to have relations with the animal, which of course is a severe prohibition in the Torah. Mal. The rule only applies of Balav Imo Potter when you're borrowing the animal for the purposes that most people borrow animals. This is an unusual type of borrowing. Odil Mataimamai, when a borrower is chayiv to pay for damages, mishum sheyesh hanoah, because the person borrowing it has benefit from the animal. He's plowing your field, he's schlepping one of your things. We don't care why he's borrowing the animal. He is also having benefit by having relations with it. Yes, it's an isser, but maybe that's not the critical point to establish the chiyuv. Okay, so the Gemara doesn't answer. We move on to the second hypothetical. He borrowed the animal not for it to actually do work or to do some utilitarian thing. He's borrowing it. He wants animals in his field, so he appears to be wealthier than he is. He's going for a loan to a bank. He's bringing the banker over to his house so he can show him how rich he is. And he's borrowing the animal, so he looks a little richer than he normally is. Mao. Mamona be'inan v'ha'ika. The fact that the guy borrowed it, he has a monetary requirement to return it and to pay for damages. So that's there. Who cares what the purpose? O Dilma, mamona de isli hana minei be'inan v'laka. We need the fact that he borrowed the animal and he has a certain asset. You need a physical asset derived from the utility of the animal. For it just to stand there and for appearance only, maybe that doesn't create the chiyuv mamoni, the monetary obligation to be chayav for all the damages. Okay, that's the second hypothetical. What about the third? You need the animal to do a certain malacha, but the value of that malacha is less than a shavat pruta. Do we say, listen, mamona be'ina be'ika, there's a value. It's worth something. O dilma, kol pachos mepruta lo klumu. Or we say maybe since it's pachos me'shavat pruta, it's not really considered value. And maybe you haven't established the relationship as a shoel for you to be chayav. Fourth hypothetical. Shol shtei poros lasos behen pruta. You need two animals to pull a wagon, and it's exactly a shavat pruta using the two animals. Now, mi amin and zil boser shoel mashe beika. We don't look at the individual animal. We look at the relationship between the borrower and the person who lent it. Since the shoel received something where there's a shavat pruta value, so it establishes the shoel masha relationship. O dilma zil basar paros. We don't look at the relationship between the two people. We look at the relationship between what was lent, the two cows, the kol chada v'chada like a mamona. And each cow is only worth a half a pruta, only did work half a pruta. Maybe that's not called that he borrowed mama. And therefore, maybe it doesn't trigger the chiyuvim of a shoel. Next hypothetical. Sho'ol mishutafi. You have partners who own an animal. V'nishalo me'echad mehem. One of the partners, man, and he kulo balav ba'inan v'haleka. You don't have one owner; you have two, and you don't have both owners. O dilma mahu pagadidei miyamifter. We're talking about one of the partners went to work with him along with what was borrowed. So maybe we don't have balav because the balav are both of them. You only had one of them. Or we say maybe the half of the work, that the chelek of the partners, mammon, he's responsible for because, or he'd be parted from because balavimo, half the bailim were there. Or vice versa. Shutafim shesha'alo. Two partners borrowed. V'nishal le'echad mehem. And one of the two people who borrowed, the bailim goes to work. Here, there's only one owner. He goes to work for one of the partners now. Kulo shoel b'inam v'leka. When it says balavimo, the bailim have to be with the two borrowers. He's only with one of the borrowers. O dilma Vahi paga the shalim is mitzvah, but at least for that part, he would be potter for. Another hypothetical. Shalma Isha. You borrowed something that belongs to a woman, the initial bylaw, and then you borrowed her husband to work with you in the field. Or vice versa. Isha shashala, a woman borrowed something, the Nishav and her husband was hired by Labab. What's the din? We have a principle that when a person gets married and his wife brings into the marriage fields that are productive, so the husband is allowed to eat payros from that field. He doesn't own the land, he has rights to payros. Now, that right, what does that really mean? Do we say kinyan payros, kinyan guftami? Do we say that having the rights to the payros is like having rights in the field? Olo. Right? For example, the woman came into the marriage with a cow. And we have to view, does the use of that cow, the fact that the husband can use that cow, gives him a certain right of ownership. So if the husband is present, it's considered the Bailam there or not, as if he owns either the piece of land or the cow. I'm not even Rav Ashi. Well, based on that also, I can go further. Ha'omer l'shlucho say v'hashali im parosi. He tells his shalia, I'm loaning a cow to my friend, and I'm lending your services to him as well, the shaliach. So it's not the owner himself. The owner sends a shaliach to work with the cow, Mao. Do we say Baal of Mamish Me'inan? In order for there to be a tour of Baal of Imo, you need the owner himself, not a shaliach. And therefore, Veleka, therefore there would be no tour, you'd have to pay. O Dilma Shluchu Shalom Kamoso. We have a principle. When you send a shaliach to the Makadesh Shanisha, we say Shluchu Shalom Kamoso, as if he did it. So here as well, he sent a shaliach. So the shaliach is like the bailim and the ikka, and therefore there'd be a tour. So Amar Rav Breder of Avil Ravashi. Look, the Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish, the answer to some of these questions that we posed is a machlokes between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish in another area. Specifically, the case of Shaliach. Rav Ashi says the inyan of the questions we asked about the husband and the wife, that's related to a plukta Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish. And the inyan of a Shaliach is based on a plukta Rav Yochanan Rav Yoshia. So what is this? Baal, this case of whether kinyan pairs kinyan guftami, and whether if you rented it from the woman and the husband came, what is that? Is that considered Baal Avimo or not? Look to Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish. Hamoicher sadei lechaver. Reuven sells the right lepeiros to his neighbor. His wife came into the marriage with a field. He doesn't have the right to sell the goof of the field. Well, that's going to be the question. Let's say he sells the right to eat peiros to a third party. Rav Yochanan Omer, person acquires the right to buy payros. A person acquires the right to eat payros from a field. Rav Yechon, the person who bought it, maybe he brings bikurim v'korei. There is a parsha called vidui bikurim that not only do you bring the bikurim, you have to read a parsha. Now, can you read the parsha? Because the parsha there, it has to say, Hinehe vesi as reshis priyadam asher nosata li. So Rav Yechon holds that when you buy a field, even when you buy the right to eat payros, it's as if you bought the gufa karka. So Rav Yechon says if you enter in this relationship to even just to buy payros, you can bring bikurim and read because it's considered nosata li. Because kinyan payros kikinyan aguf dami. Acquiring the payros is as if you acquired the karka. Reish Lakish Amar maybe aval ena kore. You can bring the bikurim, but you can't read it because he only acquired the right to eat the payros. He didn't acquire the gufa karka. Rav Yechon Amar maybe v'koirei because kinyan payros kikinyan aguf dami. Reish Lakish Amar maybe v'ena kore kikinyan payros lav kikinyan aguf dami. So the answer to the hypothetical that we raised about if you borrow from the woman and you use the husband is based on this machlokas between Rav Yechon and Reish Lakish. Now, the question we asked about shaliach, right? If the owner sends a shaliach, is that considered like the owner went to work for the borrower or not? That's plugged to Rav Yonis and Rav Yoshia, the Tanya. Ha'omer lapatropis. Person has an executor that's appointed over his estate to help run his affairs. And he's going off to China on a business trip. He's leaving his wife behind. We know that a husband has the right to nullify the nedorim, the vows that his wife takes. But he's not going to be around. So he gives the executor the rights that call nedorim shetei ishti noidris mikan va'ad sha'avim mokom ploni, all the nedorim that my wife is going to make between now and when I get back from China, hey, fair law, I want to nullify them. I'm going to use shaliach to be made for those nedorim. And the wife makes nedorim, the hefer law, and the apotropos was nullified them. Yachol yumuforim, will that work? Will the neders stand as nullified? No. Talmud Lomar, Isha ikimenu v'isha yiferen. The Baal himself has to either make him or make for the nedorim, and nobody else. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. So Rabbi Yoshia holds that a shliach, at least regarding this issue of being made for nedorim, is eino kamoso. We don't say shliach adam is kamoso. We say no, we need the person himself. However, Rav Yonasan Omer, matzinu b'chol makom sheshlucha shalom kamoso. We see throughout the Torah, a man wants to be makadosh an isha. He can send a shaliach in his stead, and it works. So we see everywhere that a shliach works. So regarding this thing, by balavimo, if somebody borrowed a cow, and then rather than the owner himself going to work for the borrower, the owner sends a shaliach, that would also work according to Rav Yonasan, and there'd be a p'tur if the animal died. Okay. Forget about a shaliach. Ha'omer la'avdo, person has an eved knani that he owns. And rather than he himself going to work with the cow, he sends his eved. Save hashalim poras imau. So this is more complicated. Tiboy lemanda omar shlucha shalom kamoso. You could still have, even according to the Rav Yonasan, who says that a shaliach is like the person, but here it's not a shaliach, it's an eved. And we could also ask the question, We can ask it according to both Amiroim. Sending an Eved, even according to the person who holds that a Shaliach is like the person, Hanimili b'Shaliach, because Devar Mitzvahu. You're talking about sending another Jew who's chayv in mitzvahs, and a Shaliach can serve in that capacity as Kamoso. Aval Eved, the lav bar mitzvahu. An Eved is not a bar mitzvah, he's not chayv in mitzvahs, maybe low. He doesn't create this shlichus relationship. Oy Dilma, you could go the other extreme. Afidul mandomer ein shlocha shalom kamoso. Even according to mandomer that says a shliach doesn't act as the person, fine. Hanimili b'shaliach, he's not himself. He's a different person. And for example, for Nedorim, right, you need the person himself. Aval Eved, in some aspects, is better than a shaliach. Yad ha'eved ki yad rabu damya. If so, the hand of the Eved is like the hand of the balabas. From a money point of view, somebody puts an item into the hand of the Eved, it's as if you put it into the hand of the master. So Omer lei mistavrik yad Eved ki yad rabu damya. In fact, the maskana here is that an Eved is better than a shaliach, and an Eved will work no matter which man de Omar in this machlokas regarding shliach, because yada Eved ki yad rabu. Okay. Now, we're going to continue with some hypotheticals. Boy Rami Bar Chama. Baal b'nichsei ishto. A husband has a relationship with the assets that a woman brings into the marriage. That's called nichsei malug. The nichsei malug are the fields that the wife brings in, and he has certain rights to those things. He has payros. Now, what is the husband's relationship to those payros? Is he a shoyel have or sochar have? Is he borrowing these fruits? And in order to be chayv in oinsin, let's say the animals that came in with the wife's dowry, something happens to those animals. Is he responsible for that? Because he's allowed to do work with those animals. So is he a borrower, or is he like a paid watchman? Amar Rava, lepum churfa shabeshta. He asked a sharp question, but it's making a mistake. Rami Bar Chama was known as very charif, very sharp. But sometimes it's like being too smart for school. Sometimes it causes confusion. Why? Manevshach. Let's see, either way, any way you look at it. Ishal havi she'ela b'bailim. I know, if you view the husband as a borrower, but he's there. The bailim are there because his wife is with him. So it doesn't make a difference. A shoel is going to be putter on damages to the animals that the wife brings in, because it's a case of balavimo. She's the ultimate owner. Similarly, whether you're a borrower or a renter, the Torah gives a p'tur having the bailim with either the renter or the borrower. So Rava responded to Rami Bar Chama, makes no difference. There's always going to be a p'tur, and therefore there's no shaila. But you want to ask a shaila, ki kamaboile, the Rami Bar Chama, it's a specific case. The Oger Minei Par of a Hadr Naspa. That means this man was not married to this woman. And this woman had a lot of cows, and he rented a cow from this woman. And then he married her. Is he a shoyel havi or a soicher havi? Is he a borrower or a renter? Do we say shoyel havi? The Baal is viewed as a borrower. V'os yishel b'bayli mavka. Mavka schirus. Now, now that he got married to her, he's a borrower with the bailim present, and that uproots the original rental agreement that they had, which was shalom b'baylim. Right? The rent, there was no owner then. The wife was not his wife at that time when he rented it, so that was schirus without bailim. But it doesn't make a difference. Now that he's viewed as a borrower that's mafkia, the original schirus, and we would say he doesn't have, he's potter if something happens to the animal, as because now bailim imo. O dilma soicher havi. Or do we say that he was initially a soicher, he rented, and now that he got married, the relationship of a husband to the wife's assets is as a soicher, and therefore it continues the original schirus relationship. Uschiris kidekay mekaymi. And there's been no change, so there's no hafkah, and it's not considered by lemimo. So the Gemara asks, "Umayshna di ishoyel." What's the difference if he's viewed as a shoyel, not a soicher? The osi she'elo bailim mafkos chirus shalom bailim. That the new status of being a borrower with the owner present, that means now that his wife, comes to uproot the original rental agreement that was not done with any owner. So, isoicher nami havi. Even if it was a soicher, tesi schiris b'bailim, tepik schiris shalom b'bailim. It should be the schirus with the owner present should get rid of the original schirus that was without bailim. And we should view it as schirus b'bailim, and there should be a p'tur in any case. So, Ella, we reject the hypothetical we raised. It's the following. The agri ihi porma alma v'hadar naspa. It's a different case. The woman rented a cow from another person, and now she gets married. So she has this cow that she rented, and now she brings into the marriage this rented cow. V'alibid rabbanan de amri. Now, the Chachamim say, if a person rents something from a person, and then while he has the rental, he loans it to somebody else. Shoyel mishalem l'soicher, the borrower has to pay damages to the one who gave it to him, who was the renter. So then, lo tuboy lecha, there would be no shaila. The vadai, that there won't be, the Baal will not have achrayas in relationship to this asset that the wife had brought into the marriage, because it would certainly be viewed that you borrowed it with the bailim present, i.e. his wife. The shaila would arise, alibid Rav Yosi, that in a case where a renter turned around and loaned it to somebody else, he says a different din. The person who rented it from the person who borrowed it from the renter, he doesn't deal with the soicher, he deals with the original bailim. You ignore the soicher. So, do we say shoel havi or soicher havi? Is he viewed as the renter or the borrower? I'm a Rava. Baal loy shoel havi, v'loy soicher havi. Rava says a husband in relationship to his wife's assets is not a borrower and not a renter. He's viewed as a loikeach havi. He's viewed as he purchased these assets. That means a woman coming in to a marriage with fields, and the bailim have the right to eat perus. He's viewed as if he bought them, and he bought them, let's say, on January 1st. And therefore, let's say if he does something to those assets later on, he's originally a purchaser, as if he bought assets from his wife. As we learn, Rav Yosef Rav Chanina. Dam Rav Yosef Rav Chanina, but Usha Hiskinu. Usha, the Sanhedrin, after the destruction of Yerushalayim, First, it moved to Yavne, the famous Rav Yechon ben Zakkai, Tein li Yavne v'chachamea. And the Sanhedrin for a while was in Yavne. But then, after the Hadrian persecutions of 135 BCE, they moved the Sanhedrin to Usha, which is much further north. And many takonos were established by Sanhedrin in Usha. One of them was Ha'isha shemachra b'nichsei maluk b'chayei bayit. We said that a woman comes into a marriage with fields, and the husband has the right to eat peros. What if the woman, while the husband is alive, sells the piece of land to a third party? Can the husband reverse that? To the point where, if the husband should die, the asset, normally, a husband the goof of the karka belongs to the woman. So technically, you'd think she'd be allowed to sell it, in the sense that if the husband died, these assets, she has the full rights to it if there's no husband. So she has the right to sell it. And basically, the person buying it from the woman understands that he's going to get full rights only after the husband dies. But now Mesa, she dies. Because who inherits a wife? The husband. So therefore, Habal moitzi midei lekuchos. If the wife had gone ahead and sold, the moment he married her, so that's the date that he's viewed as a purchaser. So if underneath him, she went ahead and sold it to somebody else, he's allowed to claw back that property, because it's considered he has a pre-existing purchase. He was the first purchaser. So comes out that a husband is not a shoel, not a borrower. He's not a renter. He's a purchaser. He's a lokech. He has the earliest sort of lien because he purchased it first. So if the woman goes in and sells it and dies, he can get it back from whoever she sold it to. Okay. Boy Rabbi Bar Chama. We're going to continue in a similar vein. Baal b'nichsei ishto, a husband dealing with property that the wife brought into the marriage. Now, let's say within those assets that the wife brings in, there are items that belong to Hegdish. And the husband didn't know. And he used the item in a chulindik manner. So we know if you use Hegdish for chulin matters, you're chayiv me'ila. The question is, mimal. Look at Rashi. She inherits assets from her father. Mishanissus. That's after she got married. So she didn't bring them into the marriage. After they got married, her father died, and she inherited these things. The imoy and moishel hegdish. The father had designated some of the money as belonging to hegdish. Ve'en doing shehein shel hegdish. Nobody knows the wife who inherited it. It's not known that this is hegdish. Amar Rabbanon, Baal zoyde behen b'chol nechasim, lishtamish v'lechol peros. A husband have declared that a husband can use all assets. U'v'takon zu nasa shaliach b'nichsei hegdish l'kanoisam. The Chachamim, in a sense, with that takana, makes him a shaliach to acquire these nechsei hegdish. The kasal kedaitach, says Rashi, shezui yitziyasam l'chul. The moment the woman gets married to this man. Basically, from that moment, the husband has the right to do whatever he wants with those items. So maybe we view the asset as going out l'chulin from that moment. Even the money is never is in a safe deposit box. They don't even know about it. It's packed away somewhere. When they actually use that money to buy something, that means that money in the safe deposit box, he then wires the money to purchase something when it's spent. Who's moil? So Amar Rava, man limo, who's going to be moil? Limo baal. If we say that the husband is going to be moel, they had terenichle de likne. He's happy with the kinyan that he got in these items with the marriage, but that's only items that he was permitted to use. If there's some unknown items that are really prohibited for his use, he didn't really want that kinyan. And maybe we say that he really never had a kinyan in the Hegdish stuff. So how can we say the husband is moel? He never was happy with the kinyan that came to him. And if you're going to say timol ihi, that the wife should be moel, that with the marriage, these assets were transferred over to the Rishus of the Baal, she's also only happy with the heteranami lo nichale de likni. I mean, she wants all of her assets. She's not really that happy that now the husband acquired these things. It's a takonos chacham that she's not really excited with. She's not really happy that the nichse malug, that her husband has the rights to it. This is something she inherited from her father. Why should her husband have anything to do with it? So it's not like she's really happy. So far we've made arguments why neither her or him should be chayiv and me'ilah, because neither were happy with the kinyan that happened when they got married. So who made the takana that a husband is allowed to do whatever he wants with assets that he inherits? Besdin. So maybe nimalu Besdin. Maybe Besdin, if such an event happens and the Hegdish money is spent, maybe Besdin is moil. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Ki av rabbanan takanta, when the Chacham made the original takana, amru ba'alo kechavi. What did they say? They said when these assets come into the rishus of the Baal, he's a purchaser. But that's only lehetera. That's only for dvarim that are permitted. L'isur lo avid rabbanan takanta. The Chacham are not happy with the takana that something should be acquired by him. So far we don't know who's moel. That means when that money is actually spent by the Baal is moel. Means in a regular case where somebody has money and he's b'shoigeg, he doesn't know that this money is hegdish and he spends it. So anytime that you spend hegdish money, even b'shoigeg, but it's taken out l'chulin, he's moal. So the same thing here. Once the husband uses this asset, l'chulin, he's going to be chayiv me'ilah. Okay, iboilu. You borrow an animal and kikesh basher, machmas malacha. You're borrowing the animal to plow your field. So the animal's using up calories. So the animal is getting thinner, is getting weaker. But it's happening machmas malacha. I mean, when you borrow an animal, it's understood that you're borrowing it to do work. Does the borrower have to pay back the owner of the animal because it's now lost 50 pounds, it's weaker. So, Omer Le'ahumid Rabbanon, one of the Chachamim, Rav Chilkia, brother of Abishmei, was his name, said, does that mean if the animal died, machmas malacha, are you chayiv? Nema, the borrower should say, lav lokal b'chilta sheilta. I didn't borrow the animal for it to just stand in the corral. I borrowed it to work. And if something happens while it's working, that's annoyingness. And that's the whole point of why I borrowed it. There's no shaila in kichesh basar machmas malacha to potter. It's certainly evident that if the animal lost weight or got weaker during the time that it was borrowed, he's potter from. He doesn't have to pay the owner back. Here comes the new chiddush. Elafilu mesa machmas malacha nami potter. Just like that, if an animal dies because of work, he's also potter. The Amarle lavlu. I didn't borrow it, not to use it. And that's the halacha. If there's some damage or it broke or whatever, machmas malacha, you're potter. If you change the terms of the borrowing and you did it, right, then you'd be chayiv. Okay. Hahu gavra d'shol nagam echavre. The person borrowed like a pickaxe. It borrowed, and it broke, while he was using it. Also, coming to Rava, and the owner of the pickaxe wanted to be paid back, so they went to the Bezdin of Rava. So he paskin the way we've just been learning. You need to bring eidim that you use the pickaxe with the standard, for the standard reasons of using a pickaxe. Let's say the standard pickaxe is meant to use to soften up regular ground, but to use it to break up concrete would not be considered the regular usage. If he used it for ground, he would be potter. If he used it for concrete, he would be chayiv. So that's what Rava said. If he used it for the regular, he didn't change the normal way of using it, you'd be potter. Because just like he said, if it dies, mesa machmas malacha, you're potter, certainly if it broke. But you notice Rava said you have to bring witnesses. So the Gemara says, "V'ileka sadi mai." What if there's no witnesses? So then how do we analyze the case? Toshma. A case, a person borrowed a pickaxe and broke. Also, the case came in front of Rav. You have to give him back a new pickaxe. So Rav Kahana Rav said to Rav, Dina Hachi? Is that the correct din? So the Gemara will and Vishosik Rav, we'll see in Rashi what's going on here. Okay, we'll stop here. So these are I'm going to try to do